After the most inspiring win of the season, where are the Nuggets after the first 10 games of the 2021-22 season? This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network and the Nuggets insider for 104.3 The Fan in Denver. He is Adam Mares. He's director of content for DNVR. You can find him at thednvr.com and at Adam_Mares on Twitter. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and we're available on all platforms. You can also find us on YouTube. Check out our YouTube channel. It's so cool. We just figured out how to do this live thing too, so it's even cooler. It means less work for us. That doesn't matter to you, but we're very excited about it. It's very cool here.
It does mean, though, at some point in the future, should we choose to, Matt, we could be live with questions coming in, live mailbags, people yelling, hurling insults at us, the whole thing.
I have gotten some requests for another live show. I will say that there's been the people, they've asked for another live show. So we'll have to see if we want to do that in the short future. Want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. All right, on today's show, State of the Union. 10 games into the 2021-22 season, where do the Nuggets stand? We'll get more of Adam's reaction to the gigantinormous win on Wednesday. The renewed kind of look at this team, which is, I think, where we should start. Adam, look, the vibes were all bad just a week ago. Like, we had an episode that was like, look, the win was okay.
They're not having fun.
The vibe has not been good.
There we go.
Focus up
so
here.
Unprofessional. What's going on over here, man? Pull
Focus
it together.
And now they get the win over the Rockets. They get the win over the Heat. They get the win over the Pacers without Jokic. They're now 7-4.
Let me ask you this though, real quick, just because it's a fun question. Better win against the Heat or against the Pacers without Jokic?
Against the Heat.
Because that one feels like more real. Like,
yeah,
I don't want to say gimmicky. It takes away from what those guys did, but a little less.
It's not gimmicky. Maybe. It's just that, look, I say this all the time because of the betting stuff I do with Action. The biggest edge in the NBA is motivational. That's the biggest edge in the regular season.
Ooh, I love that line.
Like, that is the biggest edge that you can have in a regular season context is, do you have more motivation than the opponent? And the Pacers, in altitude, on a West Coast road trip, facing a team without three best players, were very low on motivation. Like, I talked about this on the show last night, that the Nuggets played great. The Nuggets played awesome. Their defense had a lot to do with the decision-making of the Pacers. The Pacers also settled a lot. Like, they just settled for they looked at a team that literally had no centers on it. There was not a traditional center on the court last night. And they just decided to basically throw up jumpers all night. And
I listened to the show too yesterday, and like, as much as that is true, like, you're right that there was nobody inside. They had a huge size advantage. They should have feasted this or that. I don't care. It almost feels like taking away from what.
It's not. I'm talking.
I know you're not, but I don't want to focus on it because to me, this was this year's version of the 7.
Yeah,
Denver was shorthanded. They had every reason or every excuse to kind of just phone this one in on, oh, what a good fight. They only lost by 10 or whatever. And instead they went out there and just, played like they wanted to make a point. And I thought it was awesome watching them do that, watching so many different guys step up, watching Zeke Naji, like, totally bounce back from what has been a rough, 5-month stretch. I thought it was great, man. I was really impressed. And also, it's like the regular season is so long. It's fun to have a weird game.
Yeah, that's the thing. It exists in both contexts, right? The reason that you asked me which one was better, the better one is the more meaningful one that you can take away from, and that to me is the Heat game, where
I think I agree with this.
They verified. To me, the biggest thing about the Heat game was it was proof of concept of the defense.
Yeah,
they've been good defensively. They've been good defensively. They'd shown a bunch of good things. but they hadn't faced a team that had been one of the best teams in the league up to this
Right.
point.
Yep.
And the Heat's weakness is half court offense, but that to me makes it even more impressive that this team that has so much talent, that had more talent on the floor because the Nuggets were missing Jamal and MPJ, and the Nuggets just absolutely bullied them, just bullied them to the point where they lost their minds in the fourth quarter. So, in general, I think that the Pacers win was the most inspiring. The Pacers win was the most feel good. But for me, it's about, if you look at, is under the hood of this team, is there a championship engine? And there
Right.
is. The
Right.
Heat
Right.
shows that even now, and I didn't expect them to have that this early in the year. We talked about it. We were like, look, they're struggling. We expected them to struggle.
Yeah.
And, instead now it's like they're feeling great, which, of course leads into the question of whether or not they're going to bone this Hawks game, because that would make
Right.
a lot of
Right.
sense given
I don't
how
know
the games
though.
go.
I mean, again, motivation. I love your take about the motivation thing because you're right, and we don't ever know the motivation. You could sit here and say, "Oh, the letdown game because you just had the let up game," or you could sit here and say, "Hey, Jokic is back." I feel like this was a big week for Jokic. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I do feel like all of a sudden now everybody's on his side. He's got all this momentum. He's got this to prove. I don't know that Jokic is kicking himself for what happened on Monday, but I do think he's the type of guy to just be like, my teammates, I made them work without me. I kind of left them hanging. Not that you feel bad for it, but just kind of I wasn't there for them on Wednesday. I got to really be there for them on Friday. And I kind of just expect a big Jokic game. It's Friday night at home, a good opponent. Danilo Gallinari's in town. You just have a little bit of little factors here for Jokic to go out and put up a 40 piece.
Yeah, the last conversation I had with Paul Millsap before everything, the pandemic hit and everything went to hell, I was asking him about 2 years ago, the game versus the Clippers, and how the Clippers just came out of that game and just
Yeah.
wiped the floor with them in February.
Yep.
And I was like,
Statement.
I was like, how did you how do you kind of account for the fact that sometimes guys are just going to want it? He would basically, what Paul said was, when the season's this long, you just are going to have nights where you're not looking at the calendar, and they have been. You walk into a game thinking it's going to be another normal regular season game, and the team has decided this is the one, and that was the game for them, and that was a turning point that season. I'll just say that again, like I mentioned last night, it being such if Monday is proof of concept of the championship aspirations of the Denver Nuggets, Wednesday to me is proof of concept of, as much as this is Jokic's team, it is not just Jokic and a bunch of guys. I'll even say this: it's less so than a team like Dallas.
Oh, of
I don't
course.
think
No question.
I don't think Dallas gets that kind of a win without Luka Doncic, and that's about coaching, and it's about Will Barton and what he gave, and it's about the entire commitment from the team. This is a team of professionals that really believes in what they're trying to do.
And a culture. I mean, I really do think it's a culture that it's these guys, they don't make excuses. This is the one, maybe the best attribute of the Michael Malone era for this Nuggets team is that they don't make excuses. They really do seem to have a lot of their best games when they have every excuse to make. And it's almost like it galvanizes them to say, hey, man, nobody's picking us tonight. Let's go out and do the thing. So it was really cool. And I agree with you. A lot of teams in the NBA don't win a game under those circumstances because they just don't have it. They're like, hey, what do I mean? We're not going to win tonight. What are we bringing it? Denver, the opposite.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we can talk about where the team is at, both statistically in terms of the style of play, their identity, those type of things. We'll cover that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team or the away team can come to recharge. I remember on long road trips in football in junior high, how great it was to stop at McDonald's after wins or losses with my teammates. It's a place you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. Nothing gets you through a long road trip with kids like stopping at McDonald's. Everyone's got their own favorite memories. I've talked about mine on the show before, but I think it's great that there's a place that everyone has some sort of memory with because of what they brought. Head to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. I'm loving it. Also today, we're brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline's back and better than ever. They got a new web interface for the start of basketball season. More props, more odds, more lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. Basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. We will be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and we're available on all platforms. Adam, so give me the elevator pitch. Give me the platform. Give me the slogan, if you will, of the 2021-22 Nuggets so far in this early season. Who are they?
Defensive juggernaut.
Yeah.
Tough-minded. And then they've got a unique player that's just like that has almost the entire team bought in. And when they are bought in, they play this really fun, beautiful brand of basketball that is sort of malleable and it just adjusts. That's at least the version that we've seen over the last 2.5 games. This roster that just, or this team that just in the half court offensively looks and finds things, is patient and waits for things to open up through their process and capitalizes them on them. And then defensively has just been intense, connected, and looks great. It's not the team I expected, Matt. I mean, that's not like, if you asked me this 3 weeks ago, tell me after 10 games, what are we going to be saying about them? I wouldn't say arguably the best defense in the NBA. I guess statistically number 2, but arguably the best. I wouldn't have thought that, but here we are.
Yeah, I talked about this last night. I'm surprised by how physical they are. It's funny for a team that had the soft label for years and years. And I will say, like, teams stopped kind of thinking of the Nuggets in the soft way after the playoff run, I think.
After the bubble.
Yeah. Like that was where it changed. Everybody was like, oh, because they just, I wouldn't say punked, but it was just that.
No, I think they were tough. It wasn't you're right, not punk, but they were tough. They were down 3-1 twice. They didn't fold. They were in that bubble where everybody was ready to fold, even when they were winning. I think they earned a lot of tough points for that.
Yeah, and so I don't think it was as much last year, but now it's not like before. I was ready to say they were mentally tough. Like I called them the most mentally tough team in the NBA. Like they're physically, like they do. Like I was watching it last night. I was like, God, they're just like all over the Pacers. They're just up in the bodies, like every single play, and a lot of it's like it's reflective of where the game is at, right?
Yeah.
Like I wonder about that being part of it. If you're getting beat on the perimeter, but you can foul more. Like that seems like a better that seems like a better situation for the Nuggets given their personnel. But
I even think you get beat on the perimeter a little bit less because you can just kind of grab and hold a lot more.
Yeah, and they're just physical. I mean, they are up into guys, and they are
who's physical. JaMychal, here's my list. JaMychal Green is physical. He likes rough and tumble. Jokic loves rough and tumble. I think Aaron Gordon's physical. Like he just has a physicality to him too. I don't know if Barton's physical. Like he doesn't mind it, but he's not bruising you. Nobody's like, oh, I got to go up against Will Barton and I better wear my pads. So I think there might only be 3 players that I would classify as like rough and tumble or physical.
Yeah, I would say Monte's playing a lot more gritty this season.
He's like Barton, though, in that he's tough. He can handle when other guys are physical, but he's not like knocking guys on their ass.
No, I think it's less about that, though. It's more about you could be physical in terms of presenting a hit on contact, or you can be like up under a guy and really pressuring them. And that to me is more of what it's like. Like their defensive intensity is just really high. Like they're, when a guy catches the ball, they're not just like waiting for him. Like they're up on them, trying to pressure, trying to apply trying to apply pressure, trying to apply physical presence. That whole thing that coaches talk about, like they didn't feel us tonight. Like
Right.
teams feel the Nuggets, and that to me is really throughout the entire roster. I don't know that there's a guy that I feel like doesn't do that.
So the three guys I mentioned are, rough and tumble or physical, whatever you want to say. I think the rest of the Nuggets might be more swarming.
Yeah.
Which is different, but I think that's what it is. Like you've got PJ and Barton and even Bones. Like, I mean, one of the pleasant surprises with Bones, while he still makes a lot of mistakes, he's just so long and he's so quick. And so the swarm, he fits into a swarm very well. So I think maybe that's more the personality defensively.
What do you think about this being their early season identity? How do you feel about it?
So here's one thing, and by the way, I saw today your tweet today saying that Jokic is playing better defense than you ever thought. You've always been a big skeptic to it, and it was nice. I honestly, that was a big moment. I feel for you to kind of say like, hey, he's actually not just good or whatever, but has actually been, I would say, a very good defender, like an impact defender this year.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's what you're saying, and you're right. This is the best. The one thing I'll say is, I think Jokic's defense in his career has been as needed. And right now, through 10 games, as much as their defense, and we're saying like, oh, it's been great, their offense has been terrible. And they would be 4-7 if it weren't for their great defense. So I feel like one of the questions I have, my last question, because I think this defense is sustainable and that, like, I think they actually are a good defensive team now if they want to be. But I do wonder if it's like, if they start making shots and their offense picks up, defensive intensity goes 5-10% down. That's the last sort of question I have for them, and Jokic in particular.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's okay if that happens. I think, I think that I will say this: as much as I still kind of believe that defense carries you pretty far, I have definitely converted to the idea that in the playoffs, in particular, you need answers and not quality. Right. I just don't think that it's as important to be a great defensive team in the playoffs. It'll help. Yeah. Right? Like if you have enough offense and you're a pretty good defense, even if you can't come up with enough answers, if you have a good enough, if you have a good enough offense and a good enough defense, it can carry you pretty far. Right. Like the Jazz very well could have made the Western Conference Finals last year. But I think we've seen this with a few teams that have surprised. The Bulls come to mind as a team that has been absolutely just terrific defensively with a lot of personnel that everyone was like, oh, this roster is going to be horrible defensively. The other thing I would say is, to their credit, you said as needed with Jokic. I think the Nuggets in particular, their adaptability is going to serve them well. The reason I say this is, as we're recording this tonight, Rudy Gobert and Miles Turner got into a fracas, and there was an ejection, and there was a whole big brouhaha with shenanigans and the like in that game.
Weakest fight of the week.
The physicality of the league right now is going to lead to a lot of these, which will in turn make the league go, okay, maybe we should tell the officials to call a little more, because I honestly think that right now the league is like, they told the officials, hey, don't call these things, and the referees were like, you know what, this is me speculating. I just keep going back to the refs being like, oh, wait, so I have to be vaccinated. And the coaches have to be vaccinated. And I have to listen to you whine at me about not having contact when you don't have to be vaccinated. What foul? Like a lot of this, I think a lot of this is like payback from the officials for years and years of taking abuse from the players over the officiating. Because they're just like, nope. And the league will go back, I think, the other way a little bit to make sure.
I hope not. I honestly hope not. This has been great basketball.
Yeah. Everyone thinks so. That's the thing. I think the league's looking at the social media and at whatever opinion research they do, and it was going like, they love it.
The touch fouls were so over the top. Like, I mean, I think everybody enjoys them in the moment. It gives you a hit of adrenaline when it's like 55 points, unbelievable. But I just think that when you actually sit there and go, what have we lost? I don't know that the game. It's not like the games are clunky. This isn't the 82-84. Like every night's a slow. No, like this is still good basketball. It's just you have to earn your points now.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see. I do think they'll probably ease off a little bit because of the amount of tensions that have been raging early in the season.
That part is. I did think that during the Jokic fight, I did wonder.
And so, but even then, I think the Nuggets in a more free flowing style, that just means that their offense is already kicked up, right? Like they look better, which we'll have to get into in the next segment. But I think that that's a benefit that they're able to be fluid and adaptable, and that will serve them well. As I always say, you're not the same team at the end of the season than you are in the first in the first part of it. But this has been a good identity for them to set the tone. I'll just say this: like the Nuggets had every reason to kind of be, they're kind of sneaky good. Like they're better than the record, and instead, like they're just like no, like they have
They're actually good, yeah.
like they have. I find, like I said today, I don't remember where I said it on one of the various podcasts I was on, but like if you talk about like who is the best player in the NBA right now, with where LeBron's at physically, it's Kevin Durant, it's Giannis, or it's Jokic. Like
or Curry. You got to still put Curry in there.
Yeah, for sure. Look, hey man, you can't be biting on me on about Curry. I have too much tied up in his MVP to be considered a hater.
But you better start banging the drum here.
But by the way, you've always wondered, why I didn't enjoy the Warriors. It turns out the secrets for me enjoying the Warriors is just to have an obscene amount of money on them, because I'm loving this right now. Just so much fun watching them destroy teams. Let's take a break.
Here's one other thing though before we take our second break that we can talk on is I also feel like we're 10 games in and the Nuggets have figured out a lot about themselves, within this new roster. Because I feel like you can take your victory lap. Facu, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I feel like Facu is probably out of the rotation. I mean, it was to me meaningful that Marcus Howard got in this last game.
Yeah, me too.
Like he might. I don't think he's behind Marcus, but I just feel like Malone kind of knows we're going away from him. You see Will Barton has established himself as like, hey, a reliable guy that can carry you and be your second best player, this or that. Trying to figure things out with Michael Porter. I just feel like the team has actually learned a lot about themselves over this 10 games that serves them pretty well.
Yeah, they found answers, which is not surprising. That's what this team has done consistently, is just find answers when they needed to. That's been part of their identity as well. We'll talk about some of the other things that they're going to have to figure out as they go forward when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I do want to tell you about, Built Bar. I can't do this. This read now is very difficult for me with how many jokes were made about
that was so good.
And everyone talking about how they can hear in my voice. But I will just tell you, look, I love Thanksgiving. Yeah, all the good food and treats, plenty of them. But, look, got the pandemic pounds on. Got to try and get those off. A good way to get those off, it's a perfect time for Built Bars. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. You get to feast on something delicious and feel good about it. A slice of pie's got upwards of 300 calories. That's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories with only 4 grams of sugar and plenty of protein. So replace that coconut cream pie with a coconut Built Bar, or go for a raspberry Built Bar instead of that raspberry pie. Lots of good flavors to replace any pie. Low calorie, low carb, low fat, high protein, that's Built Bar. And they're all covered in 100% chocolate. Built Bar is a great option for when you're hungry. If Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, go for a Built Bar or two. You can just share some at your family gatherings. It'll make things less awkward. Maybe Aunt Betty hasn't had a Built Bar yet, and that's why she's raging. And, not that she's mad about mandates for the mask. New surprises all month, including limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly, so check the site often. There's nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises at Built.com. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Locked On Bets is your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis from Lee Sterling. Check it out wherever you get podcasts.
12 or 14 weeks they've been in the green. That's pretty good, man. That's pretty
good. It's pretty good. All right. So we've talked about where they've been. Now we look at where this team is going. They're coming out of the end of the homestand. December is road heavy. No Michael Porter Jr. right now. I will say the fact that they listed him questionable for...
Well, they didn't list him as questionable. Michael Malone said he was questionable.
Okay.
Then they listed him as out.
Okay. So I will just say the fact that Malone's not just like...
Right. I agree.
Out. Right? Because that was the as part of the craziness of Monday was the fact that he was like out in, for the foreseeable future. And we were like, what? So I've heard decent things, nothing concrete yet. I think things are being decided, but I have not heard more concerning words about MPJ, but we still don't know when he's going to be back. Campazzo out of the rotation. The bench unit seems to be stabilized. We'll see how they do in terms of fatigue, because this is asking a lot of a very short rotation right now. Zeke's performance is big. Like, they're going to need those Zeke minutes with MPJ out, because, I do think just going to basically a 3 big rotation with just Jokic, Green, and Green isn't doable with MPJ out. Like, I just think they're going to need those Zeke minutes, and Zeke earned them, right? Like, Zeke's performance in that game.
Has he earned them?
I mean, his performance in that game, I think, justifies some level of
So which player are we telling him that Zeke has now earned them over?
MPJ
for 8-9 years in the NBA, but hey, we just saw 19 minutes.
No, I'm saying I'm more saying that like Dos Verdes played more of 4 with MPJ out, and Zeke takes some of their minutes. That's all.
Okay.
So that's.
I mean, I would love to see him. I would love to see him. Malone makes guys really earn it. As good as he played, it was a feel-good moment. To me, it's more. I would classify it personally as the next time there's an opportunity, you go from going like, who do they go to now it's Zeke, and I'm intrigued. I'm hopeful that this is going to go well.
Yeah. Offensively, they seem to be getting it going. Like, the shooting wasn't good in last night's game, but that's predictable without Jokic. Monte, I think, is in a good place. Seems like Will's in a great
better now than he was. At the start.
Yep. Will's having a great season. I liked a lot of what I saw from PJ Dozier last night.
Yeah, he's coming around.
There's a few signs every game that Dozier's playing with more confidence, which is what he needed. He needed to be more assertive and just be like, no, I know what I'm doing here. I can run pick and roll.
Can I disagree?
Okay.
In just this one way. I've said this for the first 7 games. I'm going to stick to it. Everybody looked bad in that second unit. They make some adjustments. Guys are starting to look good again. So you're right that he's coming around, but I don't think it's like he's feeling more confident. He's doing that. No, it's a different unit. It's a different unit.
Okay, that's fair. The reason I kind of hone in on this is there were times in the first set of games where he would come off of the pick and he would still be trying to make a read. And several times in the last 2 games, he has come off the pick and been like, okay, they're dropping, I'm firing. Like, I'm just going to ride. Because that's what I've been saying is like, I think he can hit the mid-range J. Like, I legitimately think that PJ Dozier can hit the 2-dribble pull-up. I think he can hit that shot. And that's an extremely important shot when you do not have superstar talent on the floor. Like, he rarely does a lot when he doesn't a lot of the time for various reasons when he's with the bench unit, because defenses will give you that. And if you are hurting them with that changes the dynamic, that forces them to step up, which means you can use your athleticism to then get to the rim and get free throws. Like, it opens things up. That's the shot that's kind of the breaker. I've been talking about this all the way back to like Westbrook, going back to like 2012. The Thunder used to play him that way, and they now still do again because Russ lost the ability to shoot. But for a short period of time, Russ could hit that 2-dribble pull-up, and it was a big weapon for them in how they played. So I think PJ's been. I grant you that the bench unit looks better because it's different, but I also think that PJ individually doesn't look as uncertain, and like he's always trying to make the right like sometimes the right play is just make the read and take the shot. That's it. You don't have to get them in rotation every single time. That's not something you have to do. You don't have to get the ball popping every possession. That's okay.
I think those mid-range, I think all of the stuff you're talking about is true, but I think all of these things are just easier when the game has a rhythm to it, and it just had none. So every mid-range pull-up, even if it was open, was weird feeling because the game had no rhythm. But the other thing that you mentioned along all these lines, it kind of plays into all of this, is just Bones. Like, we're 10 games in, and I feel very good about him being on the court. Is he going to have some bad nights, off shooting nights, and like mistakes? Of course, but so was PJ Dozier. So was all the other guys on the bench. Bones, to me, 10 games in, and I think he absolutely belongs in the 9-man rotation, 10-man rotation, whatever it is. And he's not just belongs, he's a value add. Like, he brings some interesting stuff to the table.
This I will just say the scouting department is pretty disgusting with the fact that just how rarely it misses. It's just disturbing how rarely this team.
Can I go to negative town just for 1 second? You
Yeah,
could slap. Can you slap me after this because I shouldn't have even been bringing it up? But I'm
Sure.
watching tonight because I have Locked On NBA. I'm watching the Toronto Raptors and OG Anunoby and how much just everything that he brings. He's almost like if Aaron Gordon had a 3-point shot. Like he's Aaron Gordon with a set three. If the Nuggets had him as they intended in 2017, I think we'd be talking about the three-peat right now. This would be the third year in a row. It's like, is this the third championship? Because he is really good and he is such a good like Jokic ball player. I'm sorry. I don't know why I went to negative town.
That's okay. That's okay. He's fine. I think he's a smidge overrated. Just
The thing about you know what? Because what is he on there? First, second option? He's kind of like a second option or first, like he's him and Van Vliet. They're like, whatever. But in Denver, he'd be like Aaron Gordon. Like you need 12 points out of him. You need like a couple pick and rolls. You need great defense. He's got it.
I mean, I will say this. Everyone keeps waiting for that moment where he makes that leap. And it doesn't happen. Like he was a big conversational piece for like most improved this year because there was talk of him being like an all-star, and there's a lot of time for it. Maybe he can get there, but like I will say
he's an Aaron Gordon all-star though. Like that's the thing is, I don't know if he's that guy, but he's really good at the other guy.
The other thing I would say is it's like he's one of the reasons he does stuff for the Raptors is because Scotty Barnes is like their best player right now. Like that's how good Scotty Barnes has been.
I really like Scotty Barnes, but
Barnes has been awesome this year. Like he's
awesome. I really like him.
So, all right, they got Atlanta tomorrow. You feel like a big Jokic game is coming. Let me ask you. This is the Capella matchup, though.
Yeah,
this is one that he's struggled with. Trey is not shooting well from the field at all. Trey's in struggle town along with James Harden and Luka Doncic. Quite honestly, it's been rough. John Collins has been great for them, but the Hawks
these guys all have in common, huh?
Yeah, the Hawks have been really underwhelming. They're at the end of a West Coast road trip. I think that helps the Nuggets quite a bit. They've got next 3 games are Atlanta, Portland, Denver, Dallas. That's 3 playoff teams from last season. What are your thoughts on how the next 3 games go?
I mean, they're all, to me, sort of in the same category. The Dallas game is tough because it's a back-to-back with travel, so that and you lose an hour. So, like, that one is probably, I would be shocked if Denver won that one, losing an hour and traveling and playing the back-to-back. But you look at Portland and Atlanta, to me, they're about the same. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. They're going to be tough. Denver looked really good when we last saw them with Jokic. They look really tough in this last game. Will Barton's playing great basketball. I feel like they have an incredible rhythm to them right now, and I expect them to win just about every single night. So I think they should win. You're right. The Capella is a tough matchup for Jokic. I wouldn't say that Jokic like struggles with him. It's just Jokic doesn't necessarily take over to the degree that he might need to in this game. But again, motivated Jokic, I'm going to ride with the Nuggets.
Every time
and then the Portland game, come on.
Yeah.
Those games are always intense.
That's going to be wild. Portland's desperate too right now too. They are things are not going well there. To let you know how things are going in Portland, Yusuf Nurkic was benched in the 4th quarter for Larry Nance last night.
Woo!
And their new defensive scheme where they're playing at the level, they have already quit. They're already shifting away to drop.
Man.
Yeah, it is. Things could get very interesting.
Where are they at in the standings? Let me look at this real quick. Because I mean, all these teams, like I was thinking this the other day where I was like, oh man, was sky falling for this team? Like nobody, everybody's so jumbled up. Portland's 5-7. I mean, they're still in, and right after Portland is all of the bad teams.
Yeah, look, the only teams that the season is over for in terms of playoff contention are the Rockets and Pelicans in the West. That's it. That's it. Like the Wolves are 3-7 and everyone's freaking out there. And I keep preaching like, I'm telling you, they're fine. That they just need to not freak out. Like it's fine. They're gonna be okay.
You know what's so funny about that? Because who was it? Oh, it was Towns. You talk about don't freak out. Towns is the one that said like I've seen 3-game losing streaks turn into 15 or something. It's like you're speaking it into existence.
Yeah, his entire mojo is basically since since Rosas got fired, his entire thing has been like, more of this. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And
What
it's
a
really frustrating
sad,
for somebody who has
sad
their over, because I'm just
situation.
like, Towns, like, your defense is sound. You haven't hit shots that you probably are. Like, you win that game last night versus the Warriors. You hung in the game versus the Warriors. You were there. Like, they had a comfortable lead in large part because you shot terribly and played very badly, but like, you were still within range because Ant gave you 45. Like, this is doable. Quit freaking out. Like, stop. But yeah,
Oh man, I'm starting to like write some Nuggets fan fiction now as I'm sitting here. I guess the Blazers are at Houston on Friday tomorrow night, so they probably pick up a win there. But it would be nice to be able to really put them into chaos mode if you could beat them on Sunday and just make that record, make those losses really start to add up.
let's see. You play them twice in less than 10 days. So the stretch is the rest of this November stretch is crazy. You got Portland, playoff team, Dallas, playoff team, Philly, playoff team. Chicago was not a playoff team last year, but they certainly look like one now. That's gonna be a rumble next Friday. That's gonna be a really good game. Phoenix, obviously, playoff team. Portland again, playoff team. Bucks defending champion. The Heat in Miami, for that should be an enjoyable time for all involved. And then you get into December and it loosens up. You got games versus the Magic, the Knicks, the Pelicans, the Spurs twice. Some easier games in December. So, but
it is. They do have a run of playoff teams, isn't it? It's like 10 in a row. That's a lot.
Yeah, but man, I will say, like, they started off 2-0, and we were like, maybe this team's better than we thought. And then over the next stretch of games, we were like, oh, well, this is rough. This is just like disheartening. And now it's turned again. And
I think they figured some things out. And look, I don't think they're going to win every game or this or that. And then they're going to have to reintegrate Michael Porter, and that'll be a whole other new challenge. But I feel pretty confident in this team's ability to do the things that they have done over the last 2.5 games.
Before we go, like, where are you at with MPJ right now? Like, where's your head at as a Nuggets fan with MPJ?
It's not really anywhere with it. I mean, I think he was really bad at this start, and a lot of things happened to sort of compound it. I think he needs to fit in, and I think in a weird way, taking a few games off, if that's all this ends up being, and seeing how it works, might help him to do that. It happened last year. It's happened in the past. So, no, by no means panic, but at the same time, like, let's not kid ourselves. He was really bad offensively and just didn't seem to fit in those first 8 games or whatever it is he played. But I think he'll be better in the next 10 games he plays. Hopefully those are coming up soon.
As we record this, as we finish recording, the Heat have now lost consecutive games after Monday night. They have lost to the Lakers and the Clippers here.
Wow.
Not a great road trip so far for the Miami Heat. So
it's crazy, man. The Nuggets do this to teams. The Nuggets punked the Timberwolves. They haven't won since. That started a losing streak. Nuggets just getting people's heads, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Make sure to check us out on Twitter at Locked On Nuggets. Make sure to follow us on YouTube. Check out the show on YouTube. It's a good time. You get to see us go back and forth and see all the faces I make during broadcast. You can check out Adam at DMVR, thedmvr.com, and their post-game show is always a great time over there. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you guys again next week for another edition